We are live. Why is it not starting? Perfect. Good morning. Why are you here?
See what you do every day.
Shut up.
I will. Yeah, I want to. Hey, you want to go away? Yeah.
All right, now look over here for me.
It's your car. Really? Oh, no kidding.
You look like you know what you're doing.
I got it lined up already.
You're good.
We're on the air. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. We'll approve minutes, and then the sheriff has some folks to introduce. So, Madam Clerk, you want to
Bell,
tell us who's
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Freeling,
Present.
Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman,
Here.
Majerick, Martin,
Here.
Scott,
Present.
Fallraff,
Present.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough,
Present.
Majerick,
Here.
Elliott.
here?
Mr. Chair, you have 12 present.
Thank you. Any changes to the minutes from last week? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Scott, supported by Martin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We'll table requisition review for a moment. Sheriff, you have the floor.
Thank you for giving me some time to introduce you to these 6 new deputies. They just finished the police academy in Oakland Community College. They all did very, very well. Very proud of them on how hard they worked, how hard they studied, and all the accomplishments that they made during the academy. The last 2 weeks, they've been getting trained, getting ready to move into their FTO. So lucky to them, they are starting their FTO starting tomorrow, right when we're going to get the blizzard. So they're ready to do the UT10s on the computer, and because there's probably going to be a lot of those tomorrow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this to each one of them. They're going to introduce themselves, say where they went to high school or college, and just a little bit about themselves, and pass it down.
Nick Jewell. I got to hold that
Just
down.
talk into that.
Oh, okay. Nick Jewell, from Benton Harbor, St. Joe area. I went to Michigan Lutheran High School, and then I did 2 years at Lake Michigan College. And I've been working for the sheriff for 5 years, and now after the academy, I'll still be working with them, but on the road.
I'm Sydney Gardner. I went to Grace Christian out in Waterville, and then I went to Lake Michigan College and then finished out my bachelor's degree with Siena Heights. So I'm ready to start training.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gregory Suda. I was born and raised in New Buffalo, Michigan. That's where I ended up graduating from. I went to Lake Michigan College for a while. I got some college credits, and the police academy will hopefully finish up my associates. And I was a military vet for a while, stationed out in Virginia, and now I'm here.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Dominic Forestieri. I'm from right here in St. Joseph. I graduated St. Joseph Senior High. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board for sending us to the police academy. I know it isn't, inexpensive, and it means a lot to us, and we're very happy to serve the county. So thank you. Oh, sorry. I was in the United States Army for 4.5 years. I was with the 1st Infantry Division. Yeah, Marcus.
Morning, my name is Marcus Chartrand. I graduated from Lakeshore High School. I went to Davenport University in Grand Rapids for 3 years, and I've worked for the sheriff for 4 years part-time as the Marine Division. And now I have the amazing opportunity to work for the county for the 25 years.
My name is Sabrina Larada. I grew up in St. Joseph and graduated from St. Joseph High School. I went to culinary school in Muskegon, and I've been with the sheriff for about 5 years, working in the jail and on the dive team. And now we're ready to start the road.
All right.
Now they get to go to Niles and finish up their rifle training before they go hit the road tomorrow. So thank you and good luck to each and every one of you. You got a bright future, and thank you for being able to pick the sheriff's office and to serve the citizens of Berrien County. I look forward to seeing you out there on the road.
Everyone stand by one moment.
I just want to say something. I know your last names. I know your grandparents or someone, Chartrand, Forestieri. Those are two that, oh, Nick Jewell. I'm so pleased that you all are home, that you've come back home and you're serving here. Thank you. God bless you. Wonderful.
I just like, I got a little emotional a few minutes ago, but my father worked with your grandfather for 20-some years, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep.
it comes in a circle. Congratulations.
Your last day around.
Did they get their snowshoes?
So they're gonna go out, heat up, they're gonna go out and heat up some barrels.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thanks for making your coffee this morning, Sheriff.
Yeah, they're gonna need it.
Okay, requisition review.
Does anybody have any questions about the Sorry, does anybody have any questions about the requisitions? Perfect, thank you.
No. No. Let the record, Madam Clerk, would you put that in the record that I have nothing to say about the requisition?
Oh, my.
Ezra, I guess we are talking about bylaws. Sir,
Can I make my comment on the requisition at the regular board meeting?
if you wish.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're done with requisitions. The sheriff has been and gone. Bylaws, rules of procedure discussion. Annette?
Okay, so I'm putting the memo up on the screen there. But I guess we'll just go over these briefly. Is that what you'd like me to do, Commissioner Harrison? All right, I've given all of you a paper copy as well. So I believe the plan is that we'll review these today, make any final changes, and those will be approved at the January 5th meeting of the 23-24 Board of Commissioners. The first change that you would see in there would be Article 2, Section 2.1B. Just realigned that a little bit, consistent with how the process is working. And that's that basically the agendas are kind of created in our office, the administrator's office, and then we seek consultation from the board as needed. On D, this is just to clarify that it's the chair, when you guys are appointed to outside boards and committees, the chair is the one who makes that appointment. That doesn't need a full vote of the board. E, for the same section, was at a request of the PHSC to change the name of the committee on committees to the executive committee. Article 2, Section 2.1G. This kind of just puts it right in the bylaws that, you know, we sort of have this in the resolutions. Occasionally as needed, that the chair or his or her designee can sign, sometimes in pending deadlines, make it so that we have to have the county administrator or corporate counsel or even myself with their permission, always with their permission, to sign on a resolution. Yes.
How would you like to have questions or comments handled? Do you want us to wait until the end of your review or?
If you want to do them as we go.
We can do them as we go. Sure.
Okay, so the one prior in section 21 EE,
Yep.
the reference to executive committee, did we make certain that there's no resolution that creates committee on committee that would need to be cleaned up to change that name to executive?
I did not check that and I will check that.
Okay, I feel like there might have been
A
based
long,
on
long time
a,
ago.
based on an opinion that came from Judge Dwayne, I think, possibly. On
Okay.
committee on committee, there might be a resolution tied to that. Thank you.
What we could do is, and I remember that, and this is pre-85 when I came, it existed.
Yeah.
So it could be, you know, back in, yeah. So what we might want to do as part of a resolution when we adopt these is we can put a catch-all paragraph, oh, he's not here, put a catch-all paragraph in basically that says this modifies any prior resolutions to the extent necessary.
Yeah.
Et cetera, you know.
Your corporate counsel actually is attending the meeting via Zoom, so he
Oh.
is on there, so you
Got
can't see him. There he is.
That
Thaddeus.
sound okay, Thaddeus?
Oh, that makes sense to me, yeah.
Okay, very good. Jim?
My question before on part D, what was the policy before you're adding this statement?
It wasn't in the bylaws, but that has been the procedure for as long as I've been here, that the chairman always appoints the outside or the commissioners to any outside boards or committees. So I just thought that's what we're doing. I don't know why we wouldn't put that in the thing. So that's why we included that in there, just to provide clarity.
So as we went through it, there was some inconsistency in how we operate versus what the bylaws indicated. And so, or lack of clarity. And so we've asked Annette to kind of clean some of that up. And so
Okay.
this is a great example.
So what you're saying is this was actually followed in all the years previous?
Mhm.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right. Any more questions on 2.1? Right. In Article 2, 2.6 and 2.7, that's just referencing that we've added an appendix to the bylaws, which we'll see in the back. And that Appendix G then puts it right in the bylaws about the process for selecting county administrator and corporate counsel based upon the last time that you did this and the process that was used.
I have a question.
Candy.
Under Article 3, Section 3.3, letter D, I asked for that clarification to have the vice chairs selected at the very first meeting of the year. And the reason for that is because we're writing resolutions actually already for 23. And we'll know who's on those committees, but I'd like to have the chairs pick the vice chair at that one so that we can already push out the information to all the department heads. Everybody who's writing resolutions will know, who to put where and what titles they have. And so that's just a matter of trying to get it done sooner. And then as we discovered, this is not they're readopted annually at the organizational meeting, but if we needed to make a change to the bylaws in the middle of the year, so I added or as needed to that section. All right. Got to catch up my screen here. Article 3, Section 3.5. What I did there was just move this is your standard order for the meeting and the agenda. Presentations go before the public comments about the consent calendar. And so I just moved that up unless it's connected directly to a resolution, kind of like today. So there's going to be a presentation after the added agenda or added resolutions for the honorary one that we had today. And then I did the same thing with the committee of the whole meetings to add the scheduled discussion prior to public comments.
Sorry, Annette, I just need to go back to Article
No,
3, Section 3, as it relates to item E. And of course, I put the memo out of sight to see the quick reference.
I'm sorry,
That-
which one?
Article 3, Section 3, it's about the bylaws being approved or readopted annually. Can you make certain that that's not referenced in the County Commissioners Act? I think that there's some reference back to when bylaws have to be reviewed, but maybe not.
So this was the adoption is done every year at the beginning of the year, but I added an or as needed so that if we needed to adopt amended version or something like that's where I was going. So do you want me to double check to make sure
I'll
that
just
we?
double check it too, but
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
One sec, Thaddeus,
Oh, yeah, we've got corporate counsel.
can you just take a look at MCL 4611 and see if that's in there?
Yep, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay.
We can keep going in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to find my spot. Okay. Article 3, Section 3.9. I added the numerical next to B where you can see 2 minutes. Just that's kind of just a formatting thing. I added additionally what we already require of people who are addressing the board, their full name, first and last, and the city, township, or village, and then I just added that they reside in to that, just to clarify that a little bit. The paragraph below that, that's in red, was read by the chairman at a meeting following some public comments, just to try to, I guess try to add a little bit more, like, let's be nice. So I just inserted that in here. That was crafted, if I remember correctly, by the corporate counsel. And then this, on D of that same section, I didn't realize the Michigan and the 49085 wasn't in there, but I added that to the address there. And then we as a standard, if somebody sends in communication to that email address or in the mail, and it's not signed or we don't know where it's coming from, that's not noted as part of the public record because we don't know who it's from. And so this basically just follows the same thing as when somebody's addressing you at a public meeting, that they must provide their first and last name as well as city, township, or village. I can tell you that if I get an email from somebody that wants that, I do offer them the opportunity. I respond to them and say, if you want this part of the public record, I'll need your full name and where you're from, and give them that opportunity to make sure that that happens. Yep.
I've got a question, but it's more for Mac.
Okay.
I had a situation that came up a year ago when I was the vice chair. And we had the parents here. And they were discussing masks. And we had a person who was adamant of the fact of no masks. And a young lady who was masked and was forceful about that. And they got into an altercation in the crowd.
Argument or?
An argument, but it was gonna get into an altercation. It was the only time that I slammed the gavel down. And I told the sheriff's deputy, who was the Robert Royce, our chief deputy, to escort them out of the boardroom. And I told them to take their problems and their fight outside, not in this boardroom. Do we need to put something in that deals with that in our bylaws so that people can't say that we're selectively doing something? I mean, if they've done violence or the threat of violence, that they need to be evicted off of the county property.
Well,
I mean, it did come up. I mean, I handled it. It was amazing because everybody just shut up as soon as I said that. And they did go outside with the sheriff's deputy. And that was the end of it, but,
sometimes less is more.
okay.
And I think if you try to articulate how that will be handled, then you're bedeviled with exceptions or exceptional circumstances that could make it problematic if you try to actually apply it. I think, and Thaddeus, feel free to chime in, but I think we have some statutory framework already that governs conduct in public and in public places. We don't need to put in something that says you can't stand up and yell fire at one of our meetings.
Right.
That's not a First Amendment protected speech to do that, because that creates a public disturbance. So you have a fair amount of that already out there. And my recommendation would be, if something happens, deal with it. But it's going to be fact sensitive as to how you apply the law to it. And we always have recourse. We always have a deputy present. Jim's a former trooper and former wrestler, and he's our sergeant at arms. And
I sure appreciate having that uniform.
yeah, I understand.
It was gonna get sporty that day.
Well, I hear you.
You know.
And, I'm still getting my ring time, so we're okay.
Okay, fine.
But I appreciate the talk. I mean, what do you all think? Is that?
I think less is more, like you said, because you can bring other things into it and make it actually more, pick through people rather than, hey, it just makes common sense. These people are causing a ruckus.
Yeah. Well, and
Behave or get out.
yeah, and you can always say, hey, knock it off or you gotta leave.
Yeah.
I didn't go.
Worse than that, sure.
I didn't go there. I told them to take their fight outside, out of my boardroom, as a matter of fact, what I said.
Okay.
And everybody just shut up.
Sheriff would like to.
Pardon me?
Sheriff would like to comment.
Sheriff, what do
I
you
just
think?
like to chime in, since we are here every meeting. I talked to the prosecutor about someone being disorderly in a public meeting. And he says that the chair of that meeting should give them 3 warnings, ask the sergeant at arms to ask them to leave. And then when they won't, that's when we get involved, and that's when we have the probable cause to arrest them for disturbing the peace in the meeting. But you have to give them 3 commands to quiet down.
Okay.
And then you have to ask the sergeant at arms to say, please escort them out. When they won't leave, that's when we can get involved. That's where we have probable cause to put the handcuffs on them because they're being disorderly. And we want to make sure we follow, if we're going to put our hands on them, we want to make sure we have good, solid, probable cause to do that. So if I could, so just telling them once to calm down is not enough. He would like them to be told 3 times, and then have the sergeant at arms be told to get up and escort them out. And then when they refuse, that's when we can get involved.
Okay, well, hopefully it won't come to the 3rd warning.
Yeah.
So
Is that something you want added to this, or do we not need to?
I wouldn't.
Okay, all right,
Are you all okay with just having that as an understanding?
Yeah.
And
okay, all right.
yeah, okay. Thanks, Ezra.
Yep.
Okay, so this then is Article 3, Section 3.11, and this is under the closed session part. And this is after chatting with Thaddeus about the proper way to do this. I'm looking at E, and it has to do with applications for employment. And so Thaddeus had wanted to add something somewhere where someone can request. So if someone requests that their application be kept confidential, we can do that. We have to, there's certain ways that you have to do that. And so it's not on our application. However, if we post it with the posting language of where the job is posted, and we have a note in there that says, if you would like to have your application confidential, you can request that in your cover letter, noting, of course, that once interviews begin, that confidentiality is no longer, we can no longer offer that confidentiality. All right, now on page 11, this is the general procedures for the board meeting. I have to find my spot. This number has gone back and forth for years. And I think the last round we changed it to 2. The intent is always to get you your agendas as quickly as I can. But I mean, the workload just sometimes doesn't allow for that, and changes don't allow for that, as you saw this week. I sent your agenda out and then it needed to be changed again. So I'm asking for a change to 1. If you want to leave it at 2, we can do it at 2. I just know that that's
What's the mood of the group about if we have most of an agenda ready, having that shipped out to us? And then if there's something that comes along later that supplements, we could receive that as it's available. I don't know whether that would help you or not, Annette, but I'm wondering if that would work. If we had 90% of it ready to roll and we got that much, could go through it, and then something else had to come through on Wednesday or whatever, we could get it as it's available. Yes, ma'am.
Mike, yep.
I would prefer to see it that way, just because if we get everything at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, it's really hard to be able to read through everything, be able to, if we have any questions, to get those questions answered. So if we were able to get through 90% of it and we get that on Tuesday, so that Wednesday we have a chance to do all of that, and then we get a single item or 2 late, that's doable.
Yes, ma'am.
I think just logistically, it probably needs to be looked at internally. I don't know if we've ever considered using or adopting the idea of an electronic platform where we can input all of the documents, that as the agenda starts to develop, those documents are already in there electronically for us to review, to have access. I know like the city of Bridgman, city of Bridgman does something similar, where the board has access to that while staff is building the agenda. So then the formal agenda finally comes out, the public has access to it. It's one day, whatever, before the meeting, but we're able to digest some of the materials to help us to deliberate, to get to that point of having that meaningful discussion. I don't know if that's something that has ever been thought about, or if staff is interested in even entertaining, if it would help with the workload. But certainly I know that you have a ton of things that you do, and trying to find that balance is difficult. I get that. So
I'm not familiar with what kind of platform you're talking about, Commissioner, but I will certainly chat with IS about it. I don't want to add any more tasks. And I will say that we have added sending out the resolutions going to committee as an opportunity to get stuff out to you guys sooner and have more time on that, so that the committees are getting their agendas. And then, of course, there's the preview that you guys do when you do around the table for the committees to talk about what's coming next week.
Right.
And so we have added a few other things to try to, keep you guys informed about what's going, but certainly I'll change that back to 2 as we push this out for the final one. And then we'll look at some other options for try to get that stuff out to you sooner.
And I'll get that information to you of what program I'm referencing, so that you can have that conversation with Chris and move
Sure.
forward from there. Yeah. Thank you.
And then further in that line, I just added county administrator's office determines which items are placed on the agenda with consultation of the chair as needed. And that's literally what's happening currently. So, and then of course, obviously, if you guys all wanted something added to the agenda, or you want to have somebody come and talk to you, the previous process for that has been any way that you would go to the chair or the administrator's office and just ask to have that added.
Back.
Jim and then Ezra.
I think this one should be looked at very closely, because I found out that compared to when I was on the board before, where it was a set deadline, and I believe it was a number of days before the board meeting, to where the agenda was set and nothing could be added in those 3 days before. I believe it was 3 days. Can't remember exactly, you were on the board
It kind of
also.
strap the hands of the departments though, if we need it. If you set that as a concrete,
But-
absolutely not, we cannot change it after this day. I think that when situations come up, you don't really.
Yeah.
The only problem that I have with it going down to one day is when you all of a sudden get something to discuss and it has, that you receive, like you say, at 5 o'clock. You're here to represent the people of the county and your districts and the county, and if you don't have enough time to digest it, get answers and everything like that, it's very hard to make a proper opinion on whether this is good for the county or not good for the county. So I think this needs to be delved into a little bit more to figure some way out to, in the case of an emergency, yes, but we can't have everything all of a sudden be declared an emergency just because. I mean, if it can wait for one more week, then that might be more appropriate for everybody to be able to make a informed opinion on what is being presented to them.
Okay, and we're gonna do Ezra and then we're gonna do Ray. In response, in the early 90s, which was before we bought this building, actually, we were all somehow fitted into the courthouse. It's just amazing to think that we all fit in there. We met, as you know, up on the top floor where the FOC is now, and we only met once a month. We met on the third Thursday for the full board. Committees met every week. So when we had that 3-day minimum, it was just a whole different mode of operation. Now that we're meeting as a full board weekly, it changes the dynamic of things. But I'm equally fine with staying with 2 days, subject to adjusting it as we need. Ezra?
Yes, this has been on my radar also for the last 5 years. I'd like to also keep it at 2 days. The reason being is it's not a Board of Commissioners job and responsibility. All we're saying is 2 days. I think it's our county administrator that has to come up with the rules and regulations for the department heads to say, this is the cutoff date. Because this lady here is getting us agendas and things that come out. And then she ends up sending them from here at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, or at 5:30, 6 o'clock at home. Now, that has nothing to do with this board because those people don't work, the staff don't work for us. They work for the county administrator. So my thought would be, is that this needs to get cleaned up on the county administrator side to tell the department heads, this is the cutoff date. We developed a waiver system for emergencies and things like that for things, but we can't overtax a net, because if it's that important to get that resolution in, or that important to get that requisition in, that there has to be a cutoff date for those department heads. Otherwise, it's not that important. It can wait till next week. That's just my thoughts. That puts a lot of strain on her.
Okay, Ray?
So 2 things. One, are we strictly talking about something specific as to the consent calendar? Or are we just talking about in general, the agenda for the board meeting? And Mac or Thaddeus can chime in on this. Aren't we capable as a board statutorily to amend the agenda as needed? Let's say there needs to be an amendment to the agenda 5 minutes prior to us convening the meeting. Aren't we allowed to amend that agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, we can, and
we have.
Well, and we have, we've amended it even right at the start of a meeting. We can post things on a minimum of 18 hours notice. And could even post a meeting, special meeting, 18 hours advance notice, we can meet. If we amend an agenda once it's set, I mean, under that scenario, you've posted a meeting a day ahead of time, at least 18 hours ahead of time. Come in and we need to change it. We can do that, but we have to have at least a 2/3 majority vote of a quorum present. So at least a 2/3 of members present. It's not 2/3 of the fully elected body. There are some rare circumstances where you have to have that. But it's at least 2/3 present. And then you can amend your agenda. Yes, sir.
You know, I think the discussion's a very good one, and it might be appropriate to have our administrator and our executive assistant look at how we're functioning, because running weekly board meetings is, I mean, because we did a survey of the other counties, and we're unique in the state of Michigan to have full board meetings every week. And so there's got to be a different way to look at the rhythm of resolutions and contracts, as well as the other activities completed by the board.
Sure.
And look at a little different way of doing it that's not so burdensome on staff and frustrates us with last minute changes and information. So that'd be my suggestion. Maybe go with the 2-day for right now, but then let's take a look at maybe there's a little different way of doing this.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Brian?
Yeah, so to the board, between myself and Annette, we are trying really hard to get you information out well in advance of your meeting. And I think that you all have seen your agenda packets arriving several days in advance. We're trying to be respectful of the commissioner's time and give you all an opportunity to digest what's being brought forward. The thing that I would stress to all of you is that you need to maintain some flexibility. The state of Michigan, for the most part, they try to be a good partner, but being just candid, I don't think they care about a 1-day versus 2-day versus 3-day deadline. And we've run into a situation multiple times where the state has alerted staff that they essentially have 1 to 2 days to get authorizing resolutions in front of the board if we want to collect funding from them. I say this with complete respect, but I would say just give some thought to maintaining the ability to be flexible while staff completely understands it's the desire to have plenty of time to work through and review the documents in front of you.
Okay. Jim?
I think we've had some good discussion, and on its face right now, I like the 2 days. I think there are some internal things that Brian and Annette needs to do with their department heads as far as getting that information in. It sounds to me like we're gonna have more discussion about this particular topic at a later date. The question I have that I would like to have answered at that time is, for those counties that only meet once or twice a month, what do they do with those last minute emergency, we gotta do it, when they're not meeting weekly like we are, so we can deal with it? I'd like to know how they handle that, because otherwise they're gonna miss the deadline. Other than that, I think we're gonna have more discussion, but I think 2 days, Brian works it out with his staff on getting that information to Brian or to Annette, so that we have adequate time. And the way I've tried to handle it on the admin committee is if it's something time sensitive, or if it's a last minute thing, by all means, bring it to us. If it's not, then I like to follow the normal procedure of introducing it this week, approving it the following week. So we try, but we're also flexible. I understand, I get it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Brian.
So what I would say to the board is, if there is a desire to continue the discussion about modifying your meeting schedule, we will happily figure out a plan to make it work. What I would ask is that the board just telegraph if there's a desire to have a reduced meeting pace, We just need plenty of heads up notice so that I can start leaning on department heads to be thinking about a 12-month calendar and be thinking about as if we were to transition to just fewer meetings per month, we just need to give several months notice to all of the departments so that they can get their arms around getting their documents in and just adjusting their schedule. This weekly meeting schedule is very unique. There's, I think, only a handful of counties that do it this way. So I know that we can adjust it. It's just, we have a whole lot of departments that are very much used to being able to get something run through in 1 to 2 weeks. And what we would be asking them to do is essentially adjust their schedules so that they essentially have just 2 opportunities as opposed to 4.
Okay, Jim Martin.
Just to comment on that, I don't think the idea is to eliminate meetings. I think the idea is to basically train the staff that you can't come in at the last minute and expect to have it done right away. We have 4 meetings, it might have to wait another 6 days. Unless it's an absolute possible emergency, that might be something state mandated. I don't think everything that we receive that gets done in a 1-day time frame at the last minute comes from the state at all times. There are some internal things that could wait the 5 or 6 days. I've seen us not pay a bill for 5 or 6 days because of questions. It can work the same way.
Yeah, the state is incredibly talented when it comes to dropping things on us at the 11th hour. DocuSign, they want it right now.
The added resolution is
And,
exactly what happened.
I'm talking more about internal
Oh, I
county
understand.
business.
I understand. And we have met weekly.
Sorry.
For, I think this group's met weekly for north of 40 years. 37 that I know of. And it's just the full board meetings were, by the statute, you have to meet at least once a month. So we used to do it that way, but we had committee meetings every week. And then we would have special meetings if we needed to move something through before the 3rd Thursday of the month, which had been traditionally the full board meeting day. And back then we read every resolution aloud into the record. When Dick Bartz came, he suggested we develop a consent calendar, which we ended up doing. And you can always pull something and give it individual attention if you want to. And then he also came up with the numbering system that we use. 2 things that were very helpful. Because before we didn't have that way to track a resolution by committee, prefix, month, date, so forth. But a couple of years ago, when we looked at this, my recollection was the counties that don't meet as often were having more special board meetings because situations would come up and it wasn't convenient to wait till their next regularly scheduled meeting per their agenda that they publish each year at their organizational meeting. So they would call special meetings. I'm not sure how many. I think it varies by county. The further north you go, probably fewer. But it certainly is going to merit some more attention and discussion, and I'm confident we'll get there, but it's good to sweat the details. John, did you have something?
Just very quickly, it sounds like I'm a little different than most people here. I'm fine with the 1 day. So just so you know, I'm fine with that. And world moves fast in this day and age. So I'm fine with the 1 day. I really am. And I'm also very much in favor of having a discussion about the number of meetings we have, because we are a unique bird, and I think we could be more efficient. I don't think we have to meet. I'm that guy that I would draw into question the fact that the full board has to meet 4 times a month. So very much in favor of that discussion, and I'm also fine with the 1 day. It sounds like everybody else wants to move a different direction, but I'm very much in favor of the 1 day as well.
Yes, sir.
Just as a point, Jim, to you, there are several counties in the state of Michigan, and they have one board meeting a month, but the board meeting is 8 hours. And we have a clerk, we already shy people in the clerk's office and things like that, so. Because what they do is then they combine all their committee meetings, and if you add up our committee meetings and how much time we spend in a committee meeting times 4 and add that to the day, yeah, we'd be here 8 hours. So just wanted to put that out to you. I didn't realize that either until I became a county commissioner, and then I found out from at MAC, so.
Lots of no-dos taken before those meetings, I'm guessing.
Their budget's gotta be higher too.
Yeah.
With
yeah.
food.
Well, we'll get there. So we're bumping into your committee calendars now. It's 9:26. If we're done with that, let's wrap up so we can get to committees. Did you have something else in that?
You mean the rest of the bylaws, or do you just?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, yeah, for the most part, the rest of it is just basically, Brian got changed to 10,000, so I made that change there. And
Right.
then just some verbiage on the way, what the consent calendar is intended.
all right, well,
mean-
everybody's got homework then to go
Mac,
through.
I won't have any homework, so I have one more question.
Okay.
On Article 6, which is adoption, readoption, and amendment. Article 6, Section 6.2. Any proposed amendment to these rules properly presented to the Board of County Commissioners. What is properly presented? Is that a voice or is it written? What is it? Because if that's the case and we go with 2 and find out that we can move some stuff around, you can always take it to 1 later on. To amend these, but what is proper?
I'm going to defer to the chair of PHS on that, and see if he has any ideas.
I would refer that to the corporate counsel.
Okay.
A lot of deferation going on here.
Well, that's my way of saying I don't know.
I was just a thought. I was just wondering how that would work.
I'm gonna find someone to defer that to.
Pardon?
I just need to find someone else to defer it to. Give me a moment.
All right, that sounds good. Well, we'll,
Never mind.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Annette, did you have anything else on this?
No,
Okay,
I
so
guess I'm
just-
done. And the PO discussion was supposed to happen after that, but we can move that out, I guess, into January if we need to, but we do have some change orders sitting out there that need to be approved, and I thought that you guys wanted a conversation about that before we moved.
Doug, do you need anything today?
There will be change.
Nope, here, come here.
There will be change orders that are coming through of some size, which we were going to provide as an example. One has to do with the, I can give you copies, but it's moving, it's addressing the contract for Spicer Group for the year of 2022, in which the original purchase order was $700,000, a little over $700,000. Had been moved up to 939,000 and now has gone up to 975,000. That was going to be an example for the conversation around the change order process.
There he is.
With that,
Where's Brian?
Isn't that the number that we were told was not the number 2 weeks ago?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
2023.
Transposition.
Yes,
That's
sir.
2023. This is 2022. Oh,
So still,
And
that's,
23 was moved to 90,000. So if we're already at almost $1 million for 22,
correct.
what's gonna happen in 23, which is why we really need to have the purchase order discussion, whether it's today or the first of the year or something. But the changes of, that magnitude from going from 90 to 900,
Commissioner,
that needs to come back to us.
What's your pleasure, group?
Finance, we have this discussion in finance and then have this discussion, full board.
Want to do that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I say to hold them to the 90.
Well,
There's a
We can
problem with that, though.
Say
If I-
out loud here, or just come
If I
back and
may.
say it later.
ma'am, you have time?
Yes.
I'd be happy to have a conversation with finance,
Yes.
a little
All
further.
right, well, if you'll go to finance,
Well,
and
then
we're
we
we're
will-
trying to figure out if Annette can
we'll
continue
circle
with
back.
this. Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah,
Because you are the only one on our agenda, I believe.
Correct.
Right.
So, Annette?
Yep.
You would like to continue with this? To what time, Doug? How much time do you need?
I think I'm on your agenda for like 15 minutes. That won't be a problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the only one on there today for you
Right.
guys, so.
And I would like Annette to continue.
okay.
And if we leave here at a 1:45, 10 to, we still have a whole, that's 45 minutes. We don't need that much. If we leave here at 10.
All right, that'll be good. Terry, you had something?
Oh, I was gonna ask if Doug had anything that he wanted to address to the full board on this matter,
Oh,
just to kind of prime the engines a little.
just really quick, to the full board, we've developed something to try to implement a systematic process whereby change orders would be identified, shown where they are, where they have been, where they're going, with some kind of explanation. That would be very similar to the requisition process as it is today, but it would be for change orders. I have several questions that need to be addressed in order to refine that process. So with that, we do have something that we're creating to address it. I think you sent the email out, correct? Or the information out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
So if we go to our committee at 10.
no, sorry.
Oh, yeah, because it was the committee of the whole presentation. So yes, it did go out.
Yes, it did.
So
Thank you.
when we break, you're going to finance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Ma'am.
stay in here with us when we come up.
And if we're being dismissed to our parent committees, if we're not continuing the conversation here, I just want to thank Annette and the rest of staff and PHS for their work that they did do on the bylaws. I know it's never an easy lift. And I know that Annette spends a lot of hours kind of working through all of that. So I just want to publicly thank her for that.
And I want to give her the time to present this to us. So continue, because I want to know what the sheet is with the yellow lines. It's of this.
So am I continuing?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
That's for for the committees that Mac wants to.
Oh, okay.
Does
Okay,
anyone need
so-
to let anyone know that you're gonna be late getting to them this morning? Anyone on your calendars?
I'm not sure what's on admin, but I don't think PHSC has anybody.
Then let's plow ahead.
We just spent it.
Okay, so I was on the general procedure for board meetings, which was page 11 in the bylaws. And the roll call vote is where we change the amount for the requisition list that you get, because you gave Brian the authority for $10,000, so I changed that to $10,000.
Yeah.
In Article 4, Section 4.18, just clean that up a little bit, that the intent of the consent calendar is that all of the resolutions on the consent calendar are acted upon in one roll call vote. In addition to providing reasoning for the request was requested by PHSC to be added in there when a commissioner asks to have something removed from the consent calendar. Article 5 is the committees of the board. So this just kind of describes what each one, the areas of responsibility that each one of them has, but we also have a document that explains that. My intent was to insert this in this section. That's the lines with all the yellow, and it tells who goes where and how many times they report. But it occurred to me this morning as I was driving to work that if I do that and then you change assignments or that kind of thing, then that would require changing that whole thing the whole time. So I'm not sure that's probably the best thing to do, but there might be a way for me to add that into the bylaws themselves for at least who reports where and how often they go to the committees.
Annette,
Yes.
bear in mind, we can always put a provision in that says, is baked into the bylaws that says the board may modify this from time to time. And then you've already got it there. You don't have to come back and
Every time.
change the bylaws just to make a tweak or an adjustment to committee assignments or any number of things.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
John had a question.
Just real quickly, you can just, instead of saying you're gonna insert it in there, just keep it on file that this is where it's gonna be, and if to change the bylaw, then you just have to change, modify it.
Change the list.
Change.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Additional thought then is I kind of landed in that same place, but originally I was thinking we should just have it in
Well,
there.
the more you can have provisions that deal with ministerial tasks, saying that this is, reserved to the discretion of the board and may be changed from time to time as the board deems appropriate. It just makes it that much easier. Thaddeus, are you getting that?
Yes, yes, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so when you go through it, please bake that in. Okay,
Will do.
is everyone good with that, with the rationale for it and so forth? Okay,
The last line underneath the personnel committee was about the, your board's employees' annual performance evaluations. I added appendix I, which is the very thing I think that you're approving today. And I'm just referencing that there in that section. Thaddeus identified that the statute that was listed for the finance committee was incorrect, so we are changing that to 46.63. The executive committee just goes back to the earlier discussion that we had, that they wanted to change committee on committees to that. And we've added this clarification at the top of page 13, where it can be called from time to time as deemed necessary by the chair and or the county administrator. I believe the county administrator is calling those meetings together as well. And then Thaddeus and wanted a little bit more clarity on what executive committee can do, and that was the adding of and may only make recommendations for the full BOC's deliberation and decision. Under the special ad hoc committees, I added those that are currently in there, and you'll see the employment interview committee that's on there that we do not currently have. But Thaddeus also asked for us to call the committee that does the interview. So when we have a department head, it's in that policy, just to kind of clarify what committee that is. Thaddeus, feel free to chime in anytime you want. So that employment interview committee, the intent of that is for when you guys are interviewing for department heads and like the board, the county administrator and the corporate counsel.
Yeah, so I can just add a little bit. So the thinking here was that, so for selection of county administrator and corporate counsel, traditionally the committee on committees would take a lead role in that selection. But some parts of personnel decisions need to be done in open meetings. And the committee on committees, historically not been subject to open meeting requirements. So rather than having the committee on the committees or the executive committee now, rather than having a scenario where sometimes open meetings are required if they're doing certain functions and sometimes they're not, if they're only acting in the advisory capacity, it just seems simpler to me to create a second committee. It can have all the same members or not, it's up to you all. But that interview committee would do what it needs to do in open session. It can do what it needs to do in closed session, but we don't have to worry about a committee that sometimes is subject to OMA and sometimes isn't.
And I do recognize that we have a department head selection policy currently, and then those policies will be updated after this part is done to reflect exactly what we're doing.
Mr. Chair, just briefly, Annette, will you also in the bylaws reference that policy in that, so that if anyone has question what the makeup is, that policy is referenced in the bylaw?
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was 13. 14 is just changing the date that they're going to be passed. Appendix B, page 16, I just added that, when we have night meetings, we don't typically have parent committee meetings. Those are only called for a specific area of business. When I post those, I have to post that it's for a bid opening or, that kind of thing. So that just adds that to that. And I have lost the rest of my, oh, no, here we go. Okay. So the gray and yellow sheets were the ones that we talked about earlier. On page 20, appendix C, I added under Sergeant at Arms that any documents being distributed to the board, which is that's your current process anyway, they go to him or her and are distributed that way. Appendix G is what we talked about earlier, where it's filling the county administrator or corporate council vacancy. I did go through this thoroughly with Thaddeus, and Thaddeus was okay with how we had that described. That was what we did the last time. The appendix H is just the virtual meetings. We never really had anything in here about that, and then we kind of just had to do it. And so the idea here is that this would be a direction for how does that have to happen in the future if we go back to that. I recognize that that's not complete yet, but it will be. And as soon as I get that finalized with all of my notes compiled into one thing, I'll get that out to you guys. And then appendix I is what you're going to approve today, and that's the performance evaluation for county administrator and corporate counsel and the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Are these all read because they're new? It's something we hadn't done before?
Right, yep.
Okay, thank you. It's in the virtual meeting. Annual
Any
performance.
other questions, comments, concerns?
I'd like to compliment Annette on, this is a tedious job and she's done a great job sorting out what we do and what's down in writing and kind of making them consistent. So my personal and the committee appreciation
Thank
for doing
you.
the heavy lifting on this.
This was Jeanette Leahy. She loves doing these. Woo. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very good. Okay. Public comments. If you have any, now's the time. Tell us your name and where you're from. And given the length of the line, I'm going to assume that we don't have any. Unless, what's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, Sheriff Bobby, I just wanted to update the board. A few months ago, we dedicated the Emergency Operations Center for Sheriff Nick Jewell. And yesterday, his picture came in and I hung it up in the EOC. So I just wanted to update you. When you're going out there, his picture is hanging over the copy machine, that when people are in there, they can see that the room is dedicated after him. So just wanted to update you on that.
Is the plaque
Thanks,
next
Paul.
to it? Did you put the plaque?
Plaques out when you walk into the
The
room.
thing, okay.
Yep.
Nice.
On Empire.
Yeah, he sent that picture around yesterday. So he's a young man in that photo.
They'll appreciate that putting that.
Yes. Okay, if there are no public